Hello, hello, welcome, welcome. Hello, everybody, welcome to our conference leadership training. Everyone is looking good today.
Good morning. Afternoon.
Awesome, welcome, welcome. Auntie Joy, welcome. I see you over there.
Thank you.
We'll be getting started shortly. Hello, everyone. My name is Ebenezer. If you haven't known me from the Houston chapter in ACF, I'll be coordinating today's event. I see everyone looking clean. I'm blessed. Then we'll be having our financial skills section. And we have our Uncle Sam on the line, Sister Bula, our host, Uncle Ezika, and our Uncle Joe.
Record this meeting?
Started. I will go ahead and say a prayer.
Oh, it's recording. Thank God. So I gotta listen to it later.
Yes, we're recording. We'll be Bueller will be taking care of like the mute so she can put everyone on mute so there won't be any noise. All right, I'll go by saying the prayer. Father, we thank you for bringing us here today. We thank you for everyone on this call right now. Oh God, I ask that as we're about to go into this leadership conference and leadership training, Father, let there be someone that would hear something that could spark a fire that they could take home and use it, not just in ACF, but it could be in their everyday life, also in their church, that could help their church, oh God. Father God, the people that are speaking, Father God, give them the wisdom and let them give us understanding. Let everything that we do today give you all the glory and all the honor. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen and amen. Amen. I can stop looking at everybody. Y'all looking good. So just a few housekeeping rules that I'm going to read here. Purpose for this training is for us to get some skills in our financial part of our chapters so that we can use this in our chapters, not only in our chapters from when we go to our churches or anything that you have, as far as your own business. That's the main purpose of this. Everyone will be muted. If you have any question, you can either raise your hand or send a message, and we will send it to our speakers. They can try to answer any questions that you have. Not only that, this will also be recorded. So in case you want to go back and look at this video or have any questions or learn something more, or if you didn't catch something, we'll have access for y'all to do that. At the end of each section, our speakers will have time to answer any question everyone has, okay? I am actually the most excited person on this call because I'm trying to learn something new today. And we have our Uncle Ezika. He's a great man. He has been, if you get a chance to look at the PDF, he has been in ACF for a long time. He was also the former regional president and is currently a member of the ACF National Mission Council. And he has over 30 years of experience in the field of accounting. That's a long time. I'm only 26, so thank God. So he's also in the business sector. He will be taking care of this part. I have a huge amount of respect for him. I've learned so much from him, and he's a guy with great energy. So, Uncle Ezika, you could go ahead and take part of this section. God bless you, sir.
Praise the Lord.
Hallelujah.
Brethren, I'm going to conduct this session. I understand that there are some of us that may already have accounting background and some with no background at all. So I told our executive director, Brother Sam, that I'm going to do what I'll call accounting 0001. Very, very basic. Particularly coming from the background of having been a regional president and seeing some of the financial reports from some of our chapters. And particularly being an accountant and a regional president at the same time, there are some things that you see, you scratch your head. It's like, if anybody is to call for information on ACF finances, we will be in trouble. If anybody is to say, let's go and audit ACF, we'll be in big trouble. So this goal here today is going to be more introductory, more basic. Brother Joe will go take you to the next level, and in another session we'll go a little deeper. So I want to first of all start by talking about what I call the basic accounting concepts, particularly for those who have no business background or have not taken any accounting class before in their life. So I talk about what is accounting. There are three important functions. One is measuring what is it that we're doing. Second one is interpreting it. And the third aspect is communication. So I tell my students that accounting is actually a communication system, a way to share information to people that are either within the organization and the outside the organization, so that people will be able to make informed decisions. There are some, why is it important? Why is accounting important? For us in ACF, the local chapter leadership want to know what's going on. The region wants to know. The national board wants to know. A few years ago, there was an attempt to for us to bring all the accounting system, so that if we want to do a consolidated financial statement for ACF USA, that at least every chapter have a template that is the same, so that if we want to do anything, we have information to do it. There's some chapters that want to buy property. One of the first information the lender is going to ask you is, initial your financial statement. So we need it for internal decision making. It will also need it for external external people that want to make a decision about the organization, whether it be lenders or whether it be government agencies. Because if you think nobody wants to know, yes, Uncle Sam and various government agencies will want to know. But more importantly is that we need it to sustain. How are we doing as an organization for internal stability? How are we doing as an organization? Are we growing? Are we declining? It's a lesson. If you want to know a thriving organization, say follow the trail of money. The trail of money will let you know quickly whether the organization is growing or not. Now, let us not get too spiritual and say, oh, we don't use money to measure spiritual activities. Let's not go there for now. So I asked the question, who are the users of ACF accounting information? I talked about the chapter, the regional, and the national leaders. Also want to look at our members, the people that are donating money, that are contributing money. They want to know where that money is going, how much is being raised, how much is being spent on what. You may have some other donors, other people who are outside ACF. When people see what you are doing, when they give money, they know where their money are giving, where their money is going. Then it's a motivation for them to give more. They may also have banks and other creditors. We also talk about other government agencies. If we want to write a grant, the grantors want to know where and what are you doing. Then the general public, for example, when you file IRS Form 990, it is a public information. Anybody can go there and find out what you are doing. So here I want to look at the financial statements and some of the basic reporting requirements. First, I want to talk about the balance sheet. So what is a balance sheet? For non-profit organization, we call it the statement of financial position. As of a specific date, if we're coming right now, either in the chapter or in the region or ACF as a nation, say, what is our financial position as of a particular date? Want to tell us about our assets, what are the things we own, what are our liabilities, what are the things we owe.
Yes, sir.
So this is where I was talking about why accounting is important. We'll talk about for internal management decision, for external stakeholders, and then we also talk about for organizational sustainability. Then we'll also, I just finished talking about who are the users of this ACF accounting information. Oftentimes, for example, in ACF, we have some of our core ministries, whether it's a local chapter or regional chapter or national, even some of our core ministries that are raising money, all of them from an external point of view, all of them are part of ACF information. Whether we're talking about building bridges, whether it's the youth, whether it's the women, whether it's the missions, all of them are part of the core, part of ACF information, that if we want to do a consolidated financial statement, all this data will have to come together into one. That if somebody from external, let's say the government, want to audit ACF, then we may want to see all this data together. So talk about our general members, our donors, banks, the government agencies, or the grantors. I remember somebody told me one time to say, well, Brother Hyacinth, you write grant for the university, why not do one for ACF? I say, yeah, if ACF can gather its documents together, it will be awesome. But it's challenging for us to be able to, within the East region alone, trying to get our financial records together, either from chapters and from the various core ministries. But this kind of training will help us to get there. We'll talk about some of the financial statements and the reporting requirements. Talk about the balance sheet. So that the balance sheet is a statement of financial position. I want to look at where we are as of a specific date. What do we own? Who do we owe? What equity do we have? Then look at our income statement. Again, for non-profit organizations, call it statement of activities. Then look at, okay, what revenues, what contributions, what income do we have? What are the expenses? Where are those expenses going to? Then we'll talk about your statement of cash flow. Then look at all the cash receipts. Now we can do this, any of these statements, go look at your cash receipts and cash payments. Can look at that as an organization-wide ACF USA. Can look at it at the regional level. Can look at it at the chapter level. And we can also look at it in the individual core ministries. Then we look at the annual Form 990. For those chapters that are registered or incorporated as a church form organization, yes, you don't need to file Form 990. But if you just registered as an NGO, a non-profit organization, then you're required to file Form 990. Again, depending on the amount of revenue or income you generate in a year, there's a limit to that. We're not going to go into those details. Maybe some other training, when we dig into the Form 990, how to prepare it, we'll look at some of those limitations. But if you want to find out some more information about this IRS Form 990, you can easily go to the IRS website and you can pull it, and then you see all the requirements that are there. But the more important thing is that this Form 990 needs to be completed and filed by May 15th of every year. Now, I talk about annual property tax filing, and I put there Maryland because I don't know the requirement in other states. For example, ACF USA is registered, incorporated in Maryland. ACF East Region is incorporated in Maryland. And then we have some other chapters that every year we have to file this annual property tax filing. Now, I will assume that that is true in every other state, that if you don't file it, you can forfeit your name and forfeit your right to operate in that particular state. Then we also look at our charitable contributions. When people are giving money to an organization, every year, many people or many of us do use this charitable contribution, these letters that we now submit to the, that we now use for our tax return. That it's important and very, important that every chapter, every organization give these charitable reporting letters to their members. For a nonprofit organization, we want to focus on just the two basic ones: financial statements. On your income statement, which we also call the statement of activities, that look at your income and your expenses, or what you may, the leftover, which you may call either your profit or your net change, that flows into your balance sheet. And the balance sheet looks at the assets, the liabilities, and also the net change. When we look at the balance sheet is really a very basic equation that look at your assets, that your assets must always be equal to the liabilities and the owner's equity. The assets, we're talking about the resources owned by the entity. The liabilities, we're looking at the claims or the creditors or the money owed. And then the equity, we're looking at the right. What is it that's left for the owners? So here, when we talk about here in ACF, what kind of assets do we have? We look at the cash that you have in the bank. We look at some of the pledge receivables. When people make pledges, those pledges are part of ACF assets. So when people don't pay their pledges, it now becomes an asset that what the organization is carrying on indefinitely. Talk about those Bibles, the computers, the musical equipment, the building, the audiovisual equipment, the tables and chairs, the land. All those things constitute what? The assets of ACF as an organization. What kind of liabilities or the claims against those assets do we have? We have some accounts payable. Some chapters, for us in this region, we used to have, employees. When you don't pay, you're not paying, when you've not paid those employees, those unpaid wages becomes a liability. We have taxes payable. We may have some loans. It could be mortgage. We may even have mortgage. That is also a liability. And then when we subtract these liabilities from the assets, and then give us what you call your net assets, or owner's equity, or fund balance. There are different names depending on what you are preparing. Now, when we look at our fund balance or the net assets, I want us to be very, very careful here, because when people give money, they give money for different reasons. There are three main types of these net assets. One of them is what we call the unrestricted assets. There's no restriction. People basically give without what? Any restriction of what you can use that money for. We can use that money now for anything. We can use it to pay rent. We can use it to buy supplies, whatever the leadership wants to do. Then we have temporarily restricted assets. This may restricted for specific conditions, and once those conditions are satisfied, then or if there's any leftover, you cannot use that money. Then you have the permanently restricted. Oftentimes, I know for us in the East region, sometimes, particularly in our missions, somebody may have given money specifically for child sponsorship program. When people give money specifically for our child sponsorship program in the East region, it does not matter how much we are broke. That money is what? Permanently restricted until we have to spend that money on what that person gave that money for. And it's important that chapters and regions and core ministries, when people give money that are designated for a specific purpose, that we basically honor those requests. The same way it can also come in revenues. So the one in the fund balance are the one that people have given and we're not keeping it. Then the revenue side is when people are not giving for those specific items, either unrestricted revenue, or may have temporarily restricted revenue or permanently restricted revenues. Then we can also look at the expenses. Expenses are going to be either for operation or program specific. Now, going to see me here and giving different examples using the East region, because I just handed over as a regional president and also being part of the mission program. I'm using those things as examples of the experience or the experiences that I've had, operating at various levels in ACF. Even prior to being a regional president, I was also at one time a regional financial secretary. So many of these things I'm pretty much familiar with them in terms of how do we disburse money. I'm gonna come back to this for a minute. Because in our chart of accounts, we need to create specific way of keeping records. I know for many of us, many of our chapters, which I have seen, it's like the bank statement is the accounting records. Yes, you can use those information to a limited extent, but one area that I really want to go before I run out of time, I want to touch on quickly before, so that if I see myself running out of time, I can go, I know that at least I've covered some basic things that I know I need to address. One of them is the membership list, both at the regional levels, at the chapter level, and the national level. ACF, we need to know who are our members, who are our financial members. Okay, good.
Yes.
Now, we can do this financial statement. There are some chapters that are QuickBooks, and you can use various softwares. But for some of the smaller chapters that really don't have the sophisticated record, you may have a membership of about 10, 20 people, and you don't have all the sophisticated record system. You can use Excel to do some basic record keeping. Basic information that can have the last name, the first name, the spouse. If they have children, you can create a column for the children, the address, the phone number, the email. You can put on one column here their offerings, their tithes, the missions, the buildings, the benevolence, women, and stuff like that. And you can do this that for, if I take this family here that say the first name is Nana Johnson, the spouse is Amma. You put the address here, put their phone number. Oh, this week, Nana, in week 1, Nana gave $100 for offering, and gave $500 for mission, and gave $100 for benevolence. So for this particular week, now we have what? $700 for this family. And if we do this, if we create a template like this, we can now be able to put for this small chapter at the end of the week. For the week, we can now be able to look at the total. We can do this weekly, or we can do this monthly, that at the end of the month, hey, you now have what? All your revenues in one place. And we can create a separate spreadsheet for expenses. But once you're able to capture this kind of revenue data, that at the end of the year, you want to give Nana Johnson and his family their contribution for the year. Very, very easy for you now to come in here, and you can now go at the time, use an Excel here to get a subtotal. If you want to look at the total offering, total contribution for that particular chapter, either for the week or for the month or the year, that Excel is really very, very easy to do this. And you can extract this information to your income statement, to your balance sheet, and other things that you want to prepare. So let me go back here and continue from here. So here now I'm looking at my chart of accounts. And by the way, if anybody has any question, please go ahead and you can put it on the chart, or you can write it down somewhere along the line. I will address your questions. So if you look at the chart of account, your revenues, you can break it down, your offerings, your tithes, missions, your buildings, your expenses. You can also break down. Look at your core, it's your core ministries, missions, children, youth, building bridges, building family, women, etc. Your other expenses, again, breaking down. I am going to stop here so that I can let my brother Joe come in. But on the expenses, I'm going to just touch on the expenses quickly. Expenses are going to be two main parts to our expenses. One are program services. What kind of programs and activities are we involved in? And then look at our supporting services, which are more administrative in nature. Administrative, operation, whether we're paying gas and electric bill, whether we're buying supplies, whether we're buying battery for a microphone, for our microphones and stuff like that. Those are going to be more supporting services. Oftentimes, when we look at when the government agencies come in, they want to look at where the money is going. One thing that makes ACF different from many other organizations is that contributions that come to ACF go into either program services or support services. We don't have our national chairman, making 50% of our contribution. I'm sure Brother Jasper will say, wait a minute, in ACF we do more giving than we're receiving. But that is what we are all about. So I'm going to stop here and then turn over to Brother Joe. Let me stop sharing. Brother Joe.
Uncle Ezeka, thank you so much. That means a lot. I've learned some stuff. Brother Joe is on the line. In case anyone didn't know, Brother Joe has been with ACF since 1992. He owns his own business, and he's the CEO founder of the Hope Institute and the Janie Business Group. And he is also the ACF South Secretary. And also, he's also in the Atlanta chapter. Uncle Joe, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, let me put up your screen. Let me share your screen.
Thank you, everybody. And it's a pleasure at this time to be in your midst. And I thank the organizers who has given me this opportunity to share with us the things that pertains to how we do our finances, with particular reference to budgeting. Brother Hyacinth has done a great job, so there are some areas that I may have to skip, and if questions come up, we can deal with that. Please go to the objectives of why we're here. So the primary purpose of why we are doing this particular segment, which deals with the budget, is to understand the flow, the allocation of our resources. So if we're able to understand the resource, the allocation, then we'll be able to plan towards accountability. And that's the essence of budgeting, because it helps us to be able to sniffer all our income against our expenses. Next slide. It's all about money. When the money comes, how do we use it? How do I apply it? Next slide. It boils down to cash flow, the income versus the expenses. Next slide. Our resources come in form of income. It could be in different forms: main income, tithes, offerings, and donations, project income or program income. We have donations. We have different forms of income as ACF and other ACF platform. And we also have different applications of how the income coming. Some people are, some charters are renting, some are not. We all have, the ACF each charter has bills in different forms. We also help our members and other organizations with food. We do have cards that we use for ACF in different capacities. So basically, we're talking about the incoming, inbound, or outgoing, outbound. Next slide. Resource allocation is simply how to use available resources. The resources come in, the resources go out. So how do we allocate the different resources, different income, different things into the different areas that we operate as ACF? Next slide. That takes us to a level of budgeting. It's simply how we plan, how we organize, how we put the different income into different use. Next slide. So in a nutshell, a budget is a spending plan. It deals with our cash flow, how the money comes in, how we go out. Next slide. Why do we do budgeting? It helps us to understand how much we can spend. When we get the money, how do we spend it? We don't want to be frivolous in our spending. We don't want to go rocketing. It's God's money. So how do we spend it efficient, prudently? Next slide. So once we've gotten all this money and we want to start how we're going to be using it, when budgeting comes in, there are different steps that we have to take in order to use God's money in a more practical and prudent way. I'm not going into details of the slide because I understand every participant is going to receive a copy. So I'm going through the major elements. Next slide. So when we're trying to work out and deal with budgeting, we need to understand the needs of the organization against the wants. There are different wants, but we want to deal with the needs first. Then if there's excess and those can be prudently applied, then we can go into those. Next slide. So when we're dealing with budgeting, when we're dealing with money, we need to understand the things that are non-essential. We put them behind the bar and deal with those that are essentials. When we are finished in aligning the funds on how we're going to expend them, we can then deal with the non-essentials if necessary. Next slide. This is where I want to get to. After all said and done, when the money comes in and we're dealing with the budgeting, there are different segments within ACF that we have to apply the money. One, we have tithes coming, we have programs, we have charges. Sometimes we render service and we get paid for that as ACF organization. There are other miscellaneous donations that we receive. These are the sources of our income as ACF, whether at the chapter level, regional level, or national level. Then after we've done that, we go into the next segment, which is the expenses. We refer to it as expenditure. So in that segment, we have administration. Say for instance, at the national, we have administration. We have a director. We have those who work in the offices. These deal with administration. Then we have the executive board, which I classified as governing board because they make policy decisions on how ACF should be directed, whether at the regional level where we have executives, whether it's at the chapter level. In every segment of the organization, as the ladder go up or come down, we all have those who maintain design policies for the organization, and that's the governing board. You can classify it in different, could be board of trustees. No matter how you classify them, they are the governing board for each specific organization. Then after that, we have the other big segments of the organization, missions. Some chapters, some regions deal with education. Some chapters have mission and children's ministry, singles ministry, couples ministry, health care, business, different segments of our operations where the expenses are incurred. These we designate into different areas. So this is the meat of the budgeting, and you can take this and apply it no matter how large or small your organization is. Budgeting is the key to the success of the organization. You don't budget, you don't progress. You budget, you work on your budget, and the organization is able to move forward. Next slide. Next slide is the same. Next slide. This is, in a nutshell, the summary of what we're doing. The organization's budget. Keep the financial goals of the organization in sight. Watch, evaluate, reevaluate, amend budgets. It's all about where are we now, where do we want to go, and how do we get there, and how do we measure that we are here, we're there. This is the basic principle that guides every organization, and that measures how the directors, the leaders are actually operating in every aspect. So when you do it and you review it and you see where changes need to happen, we do it. It guides the organization as we progress. Next slide. So at this time, we will entertain questions before we go into the next phase.
Okay, I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm interested in our chapter has never had a savings account because we don't have the paper. The bank says we should bring a paper, and it doesn't. I think that we should have it, even no matter how small, save something for our future. How do we generate that? It's been a challenge, and I would like to see this moving forward.
Brother Joe, can I respond to that?
You can.
Okay. Sister Ngozi, what we have this in a chapter template. What we need to do is first of all register your chapter with the state of Massachusetts, so that it will now be an entity that operates. Now, I think one of your chapters, your South, Boston South is registered. You can also, operate under the ACF, Boston South, and you can take, their registration and you can use it to open a separate account for your chapter. So it's either you register you on your own as ACF, ACF Boston Central, or you can operate using ACF Boston South. And then with either any of those papers, you can open up your bank account.
Pastor Ngozi, that's a great question. I hope he answered your question. And please, guys, if you want to ask a question, please use the raise hand feature. So Bueller can be able to unmute you to ask a question so everybody doesn't speak at the same time. Thank you so much.
There are some questions on the
Go
chat
ahead.
line.
I think Auntie Pastor Ngozi is still talking.
Has been a problem for a long time, but we have not. I have to ask our president to approach the president of the other chapter so we can get it going. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
We can hear you, sir.
Okay.
We can hear you.
There's a question on the chat. I don't know if Ebenezer wants to ask the question. Is this with budget or how can I?
I can't see it on my screen. I think it's on the screen.
Either one of you can go ahead and answer.
Okay, the question says, when is the budget created for the organization? At what point of the year? Which the budget, in my view, is created the year before you start operation. Say, for instance, for 2021, the budget should be created this year, and it should be approved the last quarter of this year. And to start the budget, the organization or the chapter or the region should be able to look at their current spending and look at their current income. If the organization has been in existence for more than 1 year, 2 years, then it should look at probably 1 to 2 years of operations, take those total income and say, this is what we've been able to generate, and then look at the expenses. This is where our money has gone, align them together and make what we call proposed budget. And that budget should be reviewed by the executive committee and presented to the House during a meeting, and that's when it should be approved. And that should happen before the operation January 1, 2021.
I'm raising my hand, please.
and maybe my hand is not seen.
Go ahead and ask your question.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Brother Hassan, when you talk of the pledges as part of the asset of the organization, is there any regulation or law on how long a pledge is on your asset when you should write it off if it is not being paid?
There is no law or regulation. It's just going to be based on the organization's experience, the leadership. If somebody made a pledge, for example, I'm in Baltimore, to ACF Baltimore, and 6 months, we've made a phone call, send a text message, send email, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year. For me, personally, after 1 year, I will say write it off, because it's possible. It's possible that that person either may have situation where they cannot handle it, but many a time, having worked as the regional president, one of the reasons and people have given me that either they forgot, or the people in treasure, the people have not contacted them to remind them about their pledges. But I will say, if you try to reach the people, you talk to them, you send them email, you send them letters, after 1 year, just go ahead and write it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
There are some additional questions from the chat, one of which is ACF National advocating for an accounting template for easy learning and practice year after year?
Okay. Again, this is Brother Hyacinth. I will say yes, because we need such a template so that we can be able to have a consolidated financial statement. It is very hard for an organization, a national organization. Now we're having international chapters popping up, and we cannot put our house together. We have some of our core ministries that are basically doing their own thing. That is not acceptable. So we need this, basic standard template that everybody can use, so that each time we call for people, for ministries and chapters and regions to submit their data, their financial statement to the national board, then at least it can easily export this thing and then put them into one. We tell the national treasurer or the national financial secretary spending days and weeks and months trying to do something that is very basic. If we also know that nobody is being paid in ACF, therefore the more you can reduce the work and the stress level of the financial secretary and the treasurers, the better it will be for all of us as an organization.
Thank you. Brother Jimmy has his hand up. Can you unmute him so he can ask his question? Brother Jimmy, go ahead.
Yeah, this has to do with how long you can put a pledged asset on your books. I think there's a category of pledges that we haven't addressed yet, either in this seminar or in fact within the ACF generally. It's not something that we have been intentional about, but it's time to do that. It's time to begin to do that. Partly because many of us are advancing in age now, and I would expect that all of us who are probably, except for the YAs, in fact even the YAs, but certainly those of us who are parents here should have in place, as we speak, a last will and testament. That is critical. That is critical. We're all people of faith, and we're trusting the Lord that we would live long and see our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. But that is not yours to decide, right? It's not within capacity to. It's God who makes that decision ultimately. So one area that we as ACF should begin to intentionally encourage our members to do is to make a provision in their last will and testament for either their local chapter or their the ACF USA itself, you know. And I am you know, I can give myself as an example. I have a will, I have a last will, a testament, and ACF Missions, ACF USA is in my will. You know, my wife knows that. You have, ACF would have a right to, I think it's 5% or something of my entire assets upon passing on. You know, and that is something that ACF can put on its books indefinitely, at least until it is redeemed. You know, just speaking to what Rahaisan said earlier on, because that is a commitment that will be fulfilled, a pledge that will be fulfilled at a certain date. Okay, that's I think I'm clear about that.
Yeah. Brother Jimmy, this is Brother Harrison. Thank you so much. Okay, Brother Jelani, go ahead.
Am I on mute now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Now, I'm talking of because when Brother Issa was explaining, he was saying it is not a matter of regulation or law. It would depend on the policy and procedure of the organization. And now with what Brother Jimmy has brought out, wouldn't it be appropriate then that as ACF we should really kind of incorporate this into our procedure on how long various categories of pledge can be on the asset? I don't buy the idea of perpetual unless where it is very clear that, okay, even the testament that somebody has made, the person is still alive. But I don't believe that a pledge should be forever on the book as an asset when we in fact have known that this pledge can never be fulfilled. Okay. So
but
I want us to talk on, I want us to talk in respect of I want us to talk.
Finish up.
Okay. I want us to talk in respect of policies and procedures.
Okay. But Hassan, if you don't mind, I think these are really critical questions that we need to address. However, the training we're doing today really is intended to cover very basic foundational discussions. And as these questions come, I think they are instructive and we will use them to build the next level of training. For today, if we can cover the basics of what information you need to capture, how do you capture them, how do you report them, and who are the users of those information that you're capturing, and how do they help you in running your fellowship. The next level of training will now build on these aspects of accounting and financial management. So if we don't, I think as we begin to talk about some of these higher levels of financial management, it will really be going over the head of a whole lot of people. And I think we'll do ourselves well to cover the basics today and then schedule the next series of training that would then teach on these other higher level types of management.
Thank you so much, Uncle Sam. Brother Joe, are you still here? Do we continue with the slide or go to the next?
No, hold on, there are a couple of questions that popped up on the chart. One of them has to do with a template on Excel template for budgeting. And the other one has to do with the budget It is my view, my opinion, that your budget should be reviewed quarterly at a minimum. Thus, you don't want to wait too long until something happens. We'll review them quarterly. There are some chapters, there are some organizations that even do monthly review, but at the minimum, review every quarter to know where you are, where you're going, and where you've been. And this gives you an idea of the actual versus the budget. You may have a budget of 20,000, and within 1 month or 3 months, you may have expended more than that. You want to be able to review and make amendments. It could be progressive or it could be retract on some of them. That's one. The second one is that we need to be sure if we are doing this that we have templates that we can use. If you don't have any accounting software that you're using, you can develop Excel templates. We will be happy to help you in any form you need it as far as this is from ACF, even if it's, and we should be able to have that and do that. So there are many people who are knowledgeable when it comes to this accounting and budgeting. Ezeka is there, Brother Ike is there, I'm here. And there are many others who are professionals. Just ask for help and you will get it. We may proceed to the next slide.
Let me just chime in here, Brother John, so that we're doing well with time, and we will actually have a lot more time at the end of your next presentation to answer more questions.
This segment of the presentation deals with basic nonprofit financial reporting. And I know from that I may just need to go into more of the technical because he has basically presented the literal segment of it, which is statements on the balance sheet, the income statement, cash flow. So let's go to the income statement, slide number 22. The income statement presents some element of what we do. In a nutshell, during the operations, it could be in a month, it could be in 2 months. It's on a periodic basis, how much has come in, how much has been expended. It's not in a nutshell, a snapshot of the measures of how the organization is operating. And this is in terms of income, expenses, and net profit. So basically, in nonprofit accounting or presentation, it's not really called net profit. It could be called net operating income or any form or excess of income over expenses or deficit. So in that, when you look at the screenshot, the income statement, we have restricted income. So some people, when they make donations, they can say, well, we want this money we're donating to go to specific project. Somebody may come in and say, okay, you guys are running a program in Sierra Leone for medical. I'm donating 5,000 and I want it to go to that. It is restricted. We cannot use it for any other purpose other than for that. So there are different restricted income gives donations that we have to apply it for the specific area for which the donation was made.
Uncle Joe, Uncle Joe, I'm sorry to cut you off. Are we in the same presentation, or this is the new one for the basic?
This is the nonprofit.
Okay, basic nonprofit. What slide am I in?
Slide 21. The nonprofit, the income statement is a financial statement that presents financial performance of an organization over a time period. And having said that, I went into specific and started doing on income, restricted and non-restricted income, and then the net revenue from special programs All those make up the income. Donations that are restricted, okay. So with the specifics, we are able to determine which is the total income. So I would like you to go to slide 22. That is where we have the spreadsheet, Excel spreadsheet that gives the actual information. So on the revenue side, as I was saying before, we have restricted income and we have non-restricted income. And then we have other income that may come in from time to time. Then beyond that, we go into our expenses, which presents us with the different types of expenses that we may incur. We may pay for rent or rental, wages if we have employees, utilities, other services, promotions, and different areas, specific expenses that we incur come under the expenses. So when we have, at the end of the day, we have our income and we have our expenses, the total plus minus gives us whether we are in black or we are in red. If we're in red, that means our expenses is greater than our income. And if we're in black, that means our income is more than our expenses. That's the basic analysis of income and income P&L. We call it P&L, profit and loss. So different names go for it, but it's basically addressing the same issue, which is ascertaining our income and applying it against our expenses, put in a reporting format, in a financial reporting format. That's the income and expenditure of profit and loss statement. Next slide. The next slide takes us to the balance sheet, which I say for theoretical framework, Brother Hyacinth has addressed. So we go to slide 24. And slide 24, which is the basic categorization of the balance sheet, has different elements. We have the current assets, we have fixed assets, we have other assets, we have current liabilities, and we also have long-term liabilities, plus minus. This also gives us the health of the organization at a period. It could be a year, it could be a quarter, but it's not as specific as the P&L. Next slide.
And P&L stands for what?
Profit and loss. It has different names.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure we use acronyms a lot. I just want to make sure these people are following.
Okay. Go to next slide. So we've talked about balance categories. So slide 25, which is the balance sheet with different elements. And we always prefer to compare period or prior year with the current year, because we want to know if we are improving or we are regressing. I'm using that terminology. What is our health? Where are we in terms of our assets and in terms of our liabilities? Assets are simply what the organization owns, whereas the liabilities are what the organization owes, OWES and OWNS. So in terms of the spreadsheet that you can develop, if you don't have a software you're using, you have the current assets come on top, and then the liabilities come below. So the assets and liabilities must be equal at any time, which Brother Hyacinth also highlighted when he did the accounting segment. Next slide. This is a breakdown of the assets, distinguishing it from the liabilities. And you have the current. Some people, some organizations, when they deal with that, in a full-fledged presentation, you may have different categorization, liquid assets, non-liquid assets, and it goes on to a large platform. But we have condensed this in a smaller platform, so we don't have to go into all these embedded segments. So you have assets that comes in the form of cash, investments, inventories, account receivable, prepays, property and money, and the list goes on. So that represents the assets, what the organization owns. Next slide deals with the liabilities. So when you equate the assets to the liabilities, as I said before, they have to be, each of them, they have to match each other to come out to 0. So you have current asset liabilities being represented by accounts payable, wages, compensation, mortgages, and the list goes on from time to time depending on the level of the organization. For organization that is operating 500,000 more, their presentation is going to be expanded. But if you have an organization that is small, like a chapter that may not have all those, their own may be condensed to maybe 5 or 6 or 7 or 10 items. Next slide. Then the next one is cash flow. The cash flow actually just gives you a basic idea of month to month, it could be week to week, the lifespan, the healthiness of the organization in terms of the money we got today to use against the expenses we have to do. Is basically the cash that you're going to be using for your expenses. Next slide. This is the format for the cash flow, which you can adopt as a chapter, as a region, as national. So it depends on how you want to flow with it. And the next slide is a summary of what the reporting requirements does, which Brother Hyacinth has actually gone into in details. And I do appreciate the work that Hyacinth did, so I may not need to go to the full documents. But I also want to put it across that, as he said, which I want to repeat, if you have an organization that has applied for tax exemption, you are required to file your annual report, depending on whether you want to run a fiscal year or you run a calendar year. But it has to be filed 5 months after you close. If not, you're going to get penalized, charged when you file it. And secondly, if you fail to file for 3 consecutive years, the organization is automatically dissolved. You may not get any letter from IRS, but after 3 years, non-filing consecutively, the organization stands dissolved or revoked. And if you go beyond 5 years, you cannot restate it. But you can restate it after it's dissolved, but it's going to cost you money too. So don't wait, don't throw away your 501c. If you're a church is not required to file, it's automatically exempt. But if you, as a church, files for exemption and you get the exemption, you're required to file annually the reports. So if your chapter has an exemption, please file every year. If you keep skipping 3 years, the organization is revoked. And my suggestion in addition to that is when you file, it would do us a great favor to send your financial reports to the region and to the national. So if there's anything the organization, either at the regional level or national level, wants to do, they can use that financial report to to maybe consolidate their financials to apply for whatever they want to do, and that will help the organization get whatever finances they may want to. And with that, I want to say thank you for listening, and we can proceed to take more questions. And may God bless you. And
can I ask you,
resources
before you sign off,
also that you can look at. God bless you.
Before you sign up, Roger, could I ask you to dwell a little bit more on the cash flow that you touched on it, but can you dwell on that a little bit more as to what the implications of negative or positive cash flow has to do with budgets for the fiscal year?
Okay. First of all, the cash flow, which I didn't exemplify before, presents all the cash inflows and outflows derived from the operating and financing operations. It differs from income statements or the profit and loss. It basically illustrates the actual flow of money through the organization. The actual flow of money through the organization, and it shows the amount of cash available to pay expenses each period of time. If the organization doesn't have money, it cannot operate. You have to have money in your hands to be able to operate. Except if you want to be operating, borrowing. But what it does is, that's the money, the cash you have in hand to enable you to operate within that period. Whether it's 1 week, whether it's 2 weeks, whether it's 1 month, but that cash, that money is what is available for use. I don't know if it helps.
Yeah, thank you. Ebenezer, back to you.
Awesome.
I'm going to log out and log back in because I need to get my distance back.
Before you log off, please.
We're not logging off yet. We're taking questions.
I'll log off and log back in immediately.
Because the question I have is for you.
For me?
You can pose the question. You can pose the question. You can pose the question while he's logging in, and then if it's something that's more specific, then I can either try to answer it or wait for him.
Awesome.
You can also check on the chat to see if there's some questions you can read off.
Yes, I'll do that right now.
Can I go ahead with my question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Now, Brother Joe was, because I got confused on the IRS filing, and that's very critical for chapters. Now, when you talk of if you have, if you file as 501c, you need to file the annual returns. I don't understand. I want to get that understanding very well. So because right now we were having that problem before in Los Angeles where we were filing on an annual basis before we now came kind of under the what the guideline was given from the national to change our constitution or bylaw to reflect being a church, which I believe we have done when we got that template from the national. So are we now covered not to file annually, or because if we are 501c, we are still it's still mandatory for us to file annually?
Okay. Do you want me to answer?
That's an excellent question.
Ezekiel, you want to answer?
Go ahead.
Okay. But I'm going to ask you a question. When you changed it to a church, prior to that, did you have an exemption from IRS as a nonprofit?
Well, I'm being muted from the center. Okay, what I'm saying is, I don't understand your question now. Your question got me confused a little bit more.
Okay.
At one time, and I know almost about 8 or 10 years ago when I was president, we filed with IRS, and we were sent a letter that we are an exempt organization. So we were then doing 909 form and
990.
But at a point at the national, we were given a template that should reflect us as a church, which we did, and we now sent it to IRS. So tell me, where are we? What is the status of the chapter as far as that is concerned?
Okay. When you at the end of the day, you may end up answering the question. So when you send that letter to IRS and the IRS responded back to you, what was the content of the response?
I don't know if the president even have that answer, but I don't have that answer because
But just give them the simple answer.
The simple answer is, if when you wrote IRS, all you did was to request a change of status. And in that change of status, the organization did not categorically state that they will not be filing. So my view here is that you still need to be filing, because when you file as an organization, nonprofit. When you requested and say you are now a church, you still have that obligation because your status did not change. And that's why I initially said that a church that is automatically exempt from filing, but once the church files for exemption with IRS and they receive that exemption, they are required to file. Except if in your filing on the Form 1123, you indicated that you will not be filing the returns. If you did indicate that, then you're not required. So for instance, in ACF, we filed ACF Atlanta. When I filed, I specifically requested from IRS that we will not be obligated to file from 990. And we
actually, Brother Joe, I called IRS. I remember very well. I called IRS.
And can I interrupt, Brother Mike? There are a lot of questions. Can you and I, or would Brother Joe, take this question offline? I don't know if this question is applicable because we have like almost 90 people online right now. Is that a question that we can answer you so that we can deal with this with some more general information?
Okay. That's fine.
So the question that is very, your situation appears to be a little bit more specific that we can take offline. And we have about 90 people here. I
would also say, Brother Hyson, that for every other chapter who may have any questions at all about their status, please reach out to me directly or reach out to Brother Hyson or Brother Joe. And we certainly have resources within ACF to help you figure out where you stand. So if this is a question that you have, please let me know or let Brother Hyson know or Brother Joe know, and we will help you get to the right answer.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Uncle Mike.
Mr. Director, Ebony, I do want to say three things.
Okay.
One, regarding reporting requirements. If your organization, even if you have exemption, makes less than 50,000 a year, you need to file just the disclosure, which is Form 990N. It's a mere disclosure. You don't require any financial information disclosed, and it shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes to do it online. If the organization makes anywhere between 50 to 250, you file Form 990EZ. That's a short form of 990 full. And you only have limited information you can provide on that. But when you go beyond 250, please file 990 full square. You may not, for any reason, be in a position to file or provide the necessary information. That's where you may need to find a professional and consult with a person that deals with 990 or tax returns and they can help you. You don't need to go to January 1 to April 15 filers. Look for somebody that deals with that on a regular basis, and you should be able to do that. So the 3 areas, 990N, mere disclosure, no financial information there. 10 minutes, you should be done, or less. Then 250, 50 to 250, file 990 easy. And then beyond that, file for 990 full scale. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Pastor Ngozi has her hand raised. If you can mute her so she can ask her question, then I'll go ahead and read one question from the chat. Bueller, please.
Now, I did put something in the chat that with regard to the filing requirements, we will be doing a session in April 2021 that will address filing requirements for everyone.
Okay, no, mine is not to do with filing requirements. Excuse me, sir. When you talked about designated funds, in our chapter, the designated fund we have is just like if we are correcting money, somebody dies, and then within a month or 2, we give out the money. Is that designated fund? It's a short term. We don't have the long term. And that's one of my questions. Then the other one is that some banks give incentives for you to bring your money to them if you have direct deposits. If I decide to give directly every month to one of the ACF branches, would that be direct deposit? Because I'm trying to go around. We are getting a lot of charges from the bank. And then the last one is, do you know any bank that will lower the monthly charge? We are paying about $10 every month, which I think it's very high, because if we have under 2,000 in our checking account, is there any how we can get around that? Because we are, $10 every month is a lot of money from the small contributions we are getting.
Right, Joe, you will address that, or you may pick that up. I'm going to address, answer a couple of your questions. One on the bank charges. To be honest with you, I don't have any recommendation of any particular bank. Particularly when you have an organization's account, which they often classify many of them as part of their small business banking, that they're going to have their service fees. But if anybody has a recommendation of any particular bank that will exempt that, Now, the direct deposit that the banks usually are looking for, they're not looking at that from an organization standpoint. They're looking for people that where their payroll checks come in directly. That would not necessarily affect ACF accounts. I just forgot the first part of your question, Mary.
Thank you. Thank you.
Another question?
Hello. This is Angela. Me. Fifth Third Bank. So for us, we bank with Fifth Third Bank. I can find out how they are able to waive those fees that Pastor Ngozi is talking about. I know that, they waive the fees for us. We don't pay anything. So I can find out for you.
Yeah, the same with our chapter 2 from Greensboro. We use West Fargo. One time I told them that the fees were too much, and we don't want that. Ours was actually $14 every month. So they refunded it. And going forward, I don't think they've been charging us, but I will double check. But since then, we haven't had that problems.
Yeah,
because they want to keep you as a customer. So if you voice it out that these fees are too much, they will refund it and then work with you going forward.
Sure.
Wow.
Talk to your bank.
I will try again.
Thank you for the information. At least the chapters, you can go take a look at your local banks to see what you can get from them.
Awesome. Awesome.
And just a quick add. Quick add. When you go into any bank, one basic thing you want to find out is, how do they treat a nonprofit organization? And if you're exempt take your exemption paper and ask them, we are a non-profit organization and everything we do is for the benefits of XYZ. Do you charge fees for non-profit? Ameris used before they get acquired, Fidelity Bank before they get acquired by Ameris never used to charge any fees at all. It doesn't matter the account you operated. But after the acquisition, they started charging fees. SunTrust, I don't know if they've changed. You may want to try them. But the basic thing is take your exemption paper or as a church nonprofit and let them know this is what you're doing and we don't want charges. Some of them may make exemptions.
I think this is a good place to make this comment that one of the reasons why we are doing this training series is that in order for us to maximize the benefits that we can receive as nonprofits, as a nonprofit organization or nonprofit organizations, some of these detailed management tools are necessary. You might walk into a bank and want to ask for something that you believe you should have as a nonprofit, and they ask for a financial statement. If you have none, then you have no basis for asking for those things. If you are required to file Form 990 and you haven't filed it, then you have no basis for claiming that you're who you say you are. So some of this training that we're doing or we're beginning to do, they're all really trying to help us to make sure that foundationally we have all the things that we need in order to operate optimally. So I'm glad to see the number of people who have dialed into these trainings, and it's very encouraging. So hopefully you're getting something out of it, and we'll continue to respond to the questions and hopefully provide you all the information that you need. Ebi, I know you have several other questions on the chat.
Yes,
Let's
sir.
see how many we can get to. We're at 1:37 Eastern time, so we'll have a few minutes to go.
Yes, Vanessa has her hand raised. If she wants to ask a question, if you can unmute her, Bueller, so she can ask her question.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Or good afternoon. My question, I think it was touched on a little bit, but we didn't really get a yes or no. Is there going to be some type of like template that ACF USA wants us to use organizationally, like across the board? Like for YA, we're currently like putting together a budget for next year. I don't know if there's one that you all are planning to send out for like financials for 2021, since that's what like people are going to be working on right now, or if it's something that, you know, we should just all kind of like put ours together and then, you know, send it. I'm just talking about, because I know one of the presenters talked about like ease of compiling like national financial documentation. So like, I was just wondering if there's going to be like some type of like template sent out, or if we should just kind of like create our own.
Good question. Is Paul Ojukwu on the line? If Paul is not on the line, I mean, I can answer, but if Paul is the national treasurer, I just wanted to make sure if he has something to say in that respect, that he has an opportunity to do so. But if Paul is not there, he can shed more light on this. The answer to the question by Ifunanya is there's a two-part answer to it. At the national level, as far as the national board is concerned, and all the committees and work groups that are directly attached to the national board, including the young adults, yes, there is a budget template that we are using, and that template, I believe, has been provided to the teams already, but if they're not, we will provide that. The regions have their own expectations and requirements for the region, and the chapters do as well. But the same template we are recommending to everyone to use, so that there will be some uniformity in the way we manage our financial statements and documentation. For those of you who were at the leadership conference in 2018, we actually shared a document we call the minimum required financial reporting standards. And that is the basis for the documentation we're asking for at the national level. The chapters may ask for more or less detail than that, but we are not at the position right now to require the chapters to do anything beyond those minimum required financial documentation. The reason I wanted Paul to speak if he was on is that I know that Paul has been reviewing some financial templates, and we'll be doing a training on that early next year. So for this year, the answer will be that we probably don't have anything right now, but for next year, we will have something that the treasurer will be doing training on as a recommendation to chapters to use. As Brother Hyson mentioned earlier, and I believe Brother Joe as well, our chapters differ in terms of the complexity and sophistication of their finances. And so what works for one may not work for everyone, but at least they can be customizable so that at various levels we can use them. So Paul will speak more to that if he logs in. Otherwise, look out for some additional information on that by email. So hopefully that helps. Long answer to your question, but trying to cover all bases.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here actually. Sorry. Yes. So basically, Uncle Sticky, Uncle Sam, that's basically what I would have said in terms of getting it, compiling it. I'm currently working on that. And then as well, I think what we wanted to do first was to get the basics out before giving out a template and requesting for everybody to fill it out and understand it and all of that. I think what this meeting is basically getting people to understand the fundamentals and the basics of accounting and what it means to go through this process. So I think after that, when we have our next meeting, we can kind of go over how the template and how it looks and how it works. And like Uncle Sam said, it's not going to be one size fit all. So there will be some customizations to it that people can use based off of their financials and based off of what the chapter does. So, yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. We have one question in the chat. It says, is ACF National going to establish a standard write-off period for assets or use the industry standards? Cannot carry the intangible assets for too long on the ledger.
Can you
Okay,
read the question
back again from a policy standpoint, I'll respond to that, but from a technical standpoint, I'll leave that to the presenters. So Hassan or Joe, either one of you.
Can you read that question again? I'm sorry.
Is the ACF National going to establish a standard write-off period for assets or use the industry standard?
This is my quick response.
Yeah.
If the national authorizes or gives permission to do that, I would say yes, but the policy and decision has to come from them, so they have the mandate.
Thank you.
I'm not sure I understood his answer, actually.
Well,
but Joe, can you repeat your answer?
I guess if I may add to what Brother Joe is saying, that when the treasurer develops the templates, in other words, that we may need a national policy on asset write-offs. For example, I know, for example, in Baltimore chapter, for example, there are some laptops that we bought. After some years, these things are not working. Just go ahead and get rid of it. You know, write it off. Don't wait until the whole thing is broken down. You know, to be honest with you, depending on the dollar amount that is involved, if it's something less than $1,000, and if the chapter or the region want to write off a musical equipment that you bought 10 years ago, look, there are some musical equipment that each region bought 20 years ago that are still in the books. I'm like, what for? Just go ahead and write them off. Don't wait for the national policy. Now, if you have something like other more fixed assets, more long-term assets, good. You might have to look at your experience. Oftentimes, I look at a judgment, you know, being able to make a judgment, laptops, music, you know, electronic equipment, these things that really, in the 2 or 3 years, are gone. I would say, don't wait for the national policy because it may take some time to come along. Look at your financial situation. Look at it. What is it that you can do that is, you know, I'm a more pragmatic person rather than a policy hawk.
In addition to that, the finances of each chapter, each region detects what is considered or what can be written off. So for instance, I'm in Atlanta chapter and I'm going to use Atlanta chapter as a portfolio. If we're operating a budget of 600,000 and we have a regular expenses that if it's up to 5,000, we can depreciate it. Then within that time, within that frame, if we have a piece of equipment that is maybe 2,000, 3,000, still in our books, we have no reason to be keeping it over there because our regular expenses dictates what should be written off. And if you have a chapter that's operating maybe 100,000, and the regular expenses maybe, if it's 1,000, and they have a piece of equipment that is 500, it would be unjustifiable to write it off without looking at how long it's been and the service it's providing.
Okay. I want to draw attention to something in this question that I see in the chat, which is not being addressed. It says here, cannot carry intangible assets for too long on the ledger. So can you speak to that? Because that's part of what is, I think we've been talking about fixed assets or tangible assets.
But Jide had his hand up. Maybe is that what you wanted to emphasize?
Yes, I've been. Good afternoon, everybody. Jide Jagada here. I've been pushing those questions out so that we can incorporate them into the next phase. And also, too, if we don't develop a standard, nothing gets done. Brother Joanny and I, we serve on some government. What do we call it now? As board members, and they're making the same mistake in some of them. You'll see some asset carrying it year and year and year after same value. So if the national can do the due diligence and just give kind of like a template, an idea, and then we worry about compliance after. But at least there's something for them to follow so that those of us in the 60s, by the time we get to the 70s, the younger adults, they will have gotten better at doing it. And that way we'll have less exposure. That's what I'm advocating for. Even the asset that we have, the buildings, some of them are depreciating and against the conventional thinking that, oh, it should increase, but increase. It depends on the area where you have them and what's going on. So almost all the assets, let's put a standard together for people to use. Then you can do it geographically. If you're in the eastern region, which is about 100%, and then if you're in the south, which is about maybe 80% of the value compared to national average. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, Brother Emmanuel Nzewi, for coming back with that additional question. Policy-wise, at this point, at the national level, obviously, we haven't put anything out on that, but Paul is listening, and Brother Emmanuel, who's our National Board Secretary, is listening. The chairman also is on the line. I know they're all taking notes, and we'll come back to that, and we'll let you know what we put together.
Thank you so much. One more thing, if you're needing this recording, please, you need to manually register by tonight, by 9 p.m., so you can get everything. I don't know if anyone has any more questions. Uncle Sam, you have something else to say?
I was going to remind us, So remind you and all of us that we have 10 minutes. So if there are questions that we need to get to, let's try to get to them as quickly as we can. Are there questions that we have not covered as on the chat?
Let me just make a quick comment, especially for the smaller chapters, smaller groups that may not have the sophisticated systems. You may just basically need something very basic, and if you need help developing a basic template, then you can reach out, because it's important that you have something, even though it may not be as robust as others, rather than people keeping records in the book, and then you may wake up one morning, you cannot find the book where you recorded these things. You don't even remember. We've not done very well in many chapters, especially when you're handing over from one leadership to a new leadership. Let's develop this documentation, because it will help us, especially in handing over from one administration to another, so that people taking over from you would at least know what is going on.
Thank you, sir. Brother Jagede, you have your hands up.
Just have one comment. I know I've sent it to the chat room to thank Brother Ezekiel and Brother Joe for this enlightenment. I really appreciate that. And then for your leadership putting all this together. I will ask or solicit for Brother Ezekiel and Brother Joe's effort, if you can develop a simplified edition of a cheat sheet, what the electorate, maybe I'm talking about ACF members that don't know anything about accounting, what they can have in their hands when they go for business meetings. So they are looking at the screen, they will know whether it's balanced or not. We're only as good as the weakest link. If the electorate, if the participants are not well informed, it's tough for us to be as transparent as we need to be. And every organization, now we use ACF Atlanta, for example, we challenge each other seriously. It's not about Brother Lufello no, it's about making ACF better. And Brother Lufello is always very, very open to suggestions. But you can only do that if you have a cheat sheet in your hand. Me, I don't know anything about accounting, but I can look at the cheat sheet in my hand and then ask questions like, okay, what you put up, how come it's not zero? Or how come it's this? And then we help them. And then we can distribute that all over the chapter so that people can learn more about what to expect when they go for this business meeting. Thank you, sir.
Just a quick comment. Yeah. I personally, on behalf of myself and Ezekiel and every other person in the financial field who is a member of ACF, we want to assure you that we are here, we are ACF, and we will do whatever is necessary financially in terms of paperwork to help our organization to move forward. You can always reach out to any of us. We can either work with you as a group or as individuals in your chapters, whether at local, at regional, at national, to help our organization have a healthy financial progress and move forward. So we're here and we're here to help. If it involves any of us coming to your chapter to help you, we will be willing to do that. And I know I'm speaking to myself and I'm speaking for Ezekiel. This is where we live. This is our family. And nothing's going to take it out from us. God bless.
Excellent, excellent. I think that's a good segue. As we wrap up the meeting today, that if you need additional training on this, we will be putting together follow-up next level training on this. And this session will also be repeated in the spring. But if you need specific training for your chapter, you can reach out to them directly, or reach out to your regional president, and they will help to pull training together, or reach out to me and we'll pull it together from the national level. There are resources that we have within this organization to help us do whatever it is we want to do, if we're willing to. So either reach out to a regional president, reach out to me, reach out to Brother Ezeka, reach out to Brother Joe, or there might be somebody in your chapter actually who can do this. So please, let's take advantage of those. Avi, I'll turn it back over to you. We are at 1:56, and we want to make sure that we release people on time.
I'm happy.
Over to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Uncle Sam, and thank you, Uncle Ezeka and Brother Joe. You guys are amazing, very knowledgeable. This helped me out a lot. Thanks everyone who joined. Let's just close in prayers. That we can have everything going. Father, we just thank you for such a wonderful section of God. I ask God that we should not just be listeners, but doers of what we heard here today, oh God. And as we go to our various chapters, Father, I ask that you shall bless us and give us the knowledge to help each other out and also be stronger at our financial skills. Oh, Father, I ask that let your name be glorified. As we go with our day, I ask that you might guide and protect us. So God, I cover everyone with the blood of Jesus. There should be no bad news, no accident. Everyone will be great. As I let your name be highly exalted. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen and amen.
Amen. Thank you very much.